Hi folks, it's David Ostriker in very warm 38 degrees Karmiel. It's good to have a breeze in the Sukkot, very important. We're coming to the end of Sukkot in Israel. Today was Hoshana Rabbah, the great Hoshana. Hoshana until you drop, so to speak. It went well. We beat the Aravos, the willow branches at the end of the davening. We took apart our lulavs, and now we just have like an expensive lemon in the house and smelly things that we can use on Shabbos for besamim. And what's next? Well, next is what we traditionally think of as the end of Sukkot. We say farewell to our sukkah for the year. We're planning to actually make this into kind of a separate room. We're going to change the walls here on either side to just plain white walls and put a more solid roof on it. And then when Rosh Hashanah comes around next year and we're getting ready for the sukkah, we'll put the skach back on and put these beautiful walls back on as well. And the sukkah will have a double purpose, so to speak. So that's our plans for the sukkah. But now we're getting ready for one day in which both Shmini Atzeret and Simchas Torah is observed. I'm not exactly sure how it happens, because I'm never really sure about this time of the year, even outside of Israel, let alone here. I'll learn a lot. But I wanted to kind of sum up the time that we spent over the last few days, last week, with the beginning of Sukkot and with the end of Sukkot. With the beginning of Sukkot, I wanted to kind of give you like an insight that I didn't have a chance to discuss earlier. The question is, what does Sukkot commemorate? Right? That is to say, we know Pesach commemorates leaving Egypt. Also, the planting season. We talked about this before. We know Shavuos reminds us when summer is in full bloom, and also of the harvest season, the cutting of the grains and the harvesting of the fruits, and also, of course, the high point of the journey, the giving of the Torah, as well, but which came on the 6th of Sivan, roughly 6th of Sivan. But Sukkot is a curious thing because it really represents 40 years in the desert, every day, 40 years in the desert. So it could be celebrated virtually any time in the year. There are many different theories. I wanted to share one insight with you, which I think you may find of interest. And that is, there is something that happened on the 15th of Tishrei, when we celebrate Sukkot, the first day of Sukkot. And what was that? Well, according to both the Torah and the Vilna Gaon, they understood that something very special happened at that time. Let's think a little bit about Tishrei, right? There was, of course, the tragedy of the sin of the golden calf. Then Moshe Rabbeinu returned, and that was at the very beginning of Elul. Then Moshe Rabbeinu returned back up to the mountain to seek redemption, to seek forgiveness from Hashem for the Jewish people. He was there for 40 days, and he returned to the camp down at the bottom of the mountain with the second set of tablets, the second set of luchos, right? And the news of forgiveness that our tshuva, our recanting, so to speak, not only was forgiven, but the Jewish people were more determined than ever not to make the same mistakes again. And one of the symbols of this, one of the indications of this, was that not only were they, relieved that God was no longer angry with them and no longer withholding anything from them, but they were so excited about the second set of luchos that they said, we are going to build a house for God. That's metaphorical, of course, because God doesn't reside in a house. But the idea was they wanted to build something symbolic for God, not something to contend with God like the Tower of Babel, but something to indicate our love of God. And so it was that they set out to build one of the most dramatic buildings in all history, the temple in the desert, the portable temple called the Mishkan. So they went on a fundraising drive to get all the materials they needed, and after 2 days of this fundraising drive, all the gold, all the silver, all the copper, the fabrics, everything had been donated. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, it's enough. I don't want to take what we don't need. This is what we need. We don't need anything else. It was stunning. In 48 hours, it was all given, collected, donated, for this purpose. And so they stopped. So on the first day after he came down, he told them that it had been accepted. Then over the next 2 days, he said, we have to have this drive to collect the materials, and they were collected. And then they began the work, actually, on the Mishkan. And on the fifth day, which is the 15th of Tishrei, what happened? God observed what was going on, was very impressed with not only the sense of relief, but also the tremendous excitement about the news. That I think I hear somebody outside the sukkah. So relieved, so excited were the Jewish people that God recognized it. And what did he say? He said, the Ananei HaKavod, the clouds of glory that left with you in Egypt and protected you in the desert, that protected you from your enemies, that protected you from the climate, protected you from vipers and dangerous animals, that caused your clothes to always stay fresh and clean, that were part of the great miracles that went on, right? They had disappeared at the time of the golden calf, and the Jewish people were very frightened because they were small people and they were without the Ananei HaKavod, the clouds of glory. They were very much in danger and struggled with their enemies during this time. But now, on the 15th of Tishrei, they had returned. And instead of being in the wilderness in the desert, it was like they were in an air-conditioned environment, clean clothes every day, good food, good water, and more than anything else, enemies could not attack them. And that's the first day of Sukkot, and that's how it began. Now I want to jump, because we talked about Sukkot before, to the very end. And something you should know about this time, perhaps Hasidim do this better than anybody else, but there's a concept, and the concept is that whatever it was you were trying to achieve through prayer and contemplation and meditation, on Yom Kippur, on Rosh Hashanah, on the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, all of those things you can achieve now in the last 2 days of Shmini Atzeret and Simchas Torah. How? Through dance, through song, through joy, through celebrating the Torah itself. So I want to wish you a very joyous final days of Sukkot. Next time we speak will be before Parsha Bereshis. You will have already read the creation story, and we'll be moving on in the Parsha. So have a great few days. I hope the weather holds for you and it's nice. And I look forward to speaking to you before Shabbos Bereshis. Be well. David Ostriker here in Karmiel. Hag Sameach.